You're attending a webinar on the healthcare revolution, which is going to focus on mergers, acquisitions, and divestitures on the healthcare market. And with that, I give you Justin and Michael.
Yeah, crowd goes wild. Thank you, Keith. Pleasure to be here. Welcome, everybody. My name's Justin Braun. I'm a partner at RPI. I've been here since 2008. I've been a Lawson consultant since 1999. I'm a dedicated leadership coach. I'm very fortunate to have the position I have at RPI today, the partner in charge of our strategic initiatives. And I'm joined by Mr. Michael Grace.
Thank you. Yep, I've been in the Lawson space since about 2000, relatively new to RPI November. So I think this is week 5. Very excited to be here and be a part of this. And I'm the resident unicorn. You'll hear that and see some stuff coming out around that. So there's a blog out there talking about business transformation that I lead, which is a passion of mine, being a thought leader in that space. And unique about me, I'm a DJ and a party bike captain, which is kind of my fun side. So
Party biking. Really excited to have you today here, Michael. We've got a great 30 to 40 minutes of talking time lined up for you. We're going to tell you a little bit about RPI, and then we're going to dive in and talk about a market that we've been serving for a long time, and an inflection point that our company is at. And we're going to talk about specific examples of healthcare divestitures, mergers, acquisitions. So RPI consultants, we've got about 100 consultants at this point in time. For those that have worked with us, you know that we deliver as a team. Our people are our greatest strength, and we've measured that. We've done surveys of our employees, and our team feels that way. What you're getting when you work with RPI is a team of talented individuals that are used to working with one another. Really excited to be adding some new folks to the team. This has been a great year for us. And with that growth comes more capability. And we're really excited to have Michael on board and the innovation and thought leadership that he brings to bear. We've long had offices in Baltimore, Tampa. We're coming to you live from Kansas City. And I believe on Michael's 4th day, he opened our office in the Phoenix location, getting right to work. And for those that know us, we do Infor professional services. We also have, a company within a company with our content and process automation practice that runs Kofax, OCR, and robotic technologies, the Highland On-Base and Perceptive Image Now, document imaging solutions. And that's really helped extend our reach, particularly in healthcare. We're going to talk about some examples of those partnerships. We offer a robust PMO set of services around program and project and integrated change management, assessment, trainings, optimization, development, tech strategy and architecture, managed services. Obviously, our market has been disrupted quite a bit with the move to the multi-tenant cloud and Cloud Suite financials. We've been in the global HR space for some time. And what we've felt as we've grown is that we've been able to do more and more as we grow and expand ourselves. And just as our market is changing, the 11 years that I've been at RPI have been characterized by continuous improvement and constant change. And we're really happy to share that with you today. This is kind of a rundown of our menu of services and what's developed more recently within the last, I'd say, 5 years. We've been hard at work developing a tool we call the Process Integration Framework. So if you've worked with RPI on an assessment, you're very familiar with this function and role-based, process, function, and role-based view of how the Infor and imaging technologies support our clients. We have prescriptive best practices around those functions and processes. A lot of it aligns with the Infor deployment method. And if you've engaged RPI for a testing plan build, you know all about our process integration framework because it's organized by those functions and processes which align to the APQC, the American Process Classification Framework. And what that allows us to do is see repeatable patterns, particularly in healthcare, around the common functions that you're using Infor for, whether that's in financials, human capital management, supply chain, and that's our baseline starting point. We're going to talk about what makes RPI unique in our value proposition, But I'm very proud to share the evolution of our firm and our process integration framework as the main tool to drive that standardization. It also drives our analytic portfolio. And when we look at opportunities to automate and extend the solution with IPA and other extensibility tools, again, it comes back to that process and role-based inventory of who's using the technology how to support your business objectives. So we've got a long history as an implementer, and we're kind of making the push into the strategic space with, the addition of some really amazing folks that have been working in healthcare standardization, including Michael. So did you want to talk a little bit about this healthcare revolution that's going on?
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. Yeah, I mean, coming out of healthcare and really having been in healthcare for the last 20 years in some capacity, both as a consultant and as a customer, I have really watched the ebb and flow of what's happening in both the business side and the technology side. I love this kind of controversial graphic, right? We spent a bunch of time kind of having a good time with it and talking about, do we use it, do we not? The whole revolution again with kind of a divisive revolutionary. And it is, there's kind of two sides to that, right? I think healthcare is exhausted, to be honest. We just came out of, I'd call it the healthcare clinical revolution, right? We came out of a decade of EHR with Cerner and Allscripts and Meditech migrations and then we had ICD-9 and 10 and all the billing and charge revolution there and all the systems that had to be dealt with in that, as well as HIPAA, right, and the advent of that in the last decade and all those changes and systematic protections that had to go into place. And those are just the major kind of forces that were happening. So the focus was really on the patient, provider, clinical side in healthcare. And I think, that's kind of ebbed now and we're done. Well, we're not done, but it's no longer the primary focus, right? Mm-hmm. Which really gives us an opportunity. I think you're seeing healthcare now focus to process improvement, doing more with less, lowering costs, getting better value. And you're starting to see the advent of that, right? More of the healthcare back office revolution, if you will. So that's really starting up. And revolutions, they're not neat and clean and easy and nor cheap, right? Revolutions are messy, they're complex, and oftentimes they're chaotic, right? Not necessarily a whole lot of fun. Got our day job, now we got all this other stuff we got to do. So we get it. So adding some sense to the chaos, I think, is something that we do really well. And it's becoming the norm, right? Big fish gobbling up small fish, two small fish joining together to survive in these times. Healthcare just is transforming with kind of patients wanting, from just a provider perspective, right? They're much more informed. There's all kinds of different ways that they choose healthcare providers now. So lots of activity in the space for really the first time in probably the last 5 years. It's really picking up, and it's not going to stop. There's a lot of mergers, and the mergers are getting a little bit weirder, right? The mergers are now payer and provider, ancillary healthcare services and providers. So it's totally changing. Which creates this opportunity to be something different, right? The time is now is kind of one of our speaking points to do something in healthcare right now.
Yeah, the opportunity is massive, and we're excited to be a part of it. Sometimes it helps to start with the current state in healthcare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked about the mergers and acquisitions, right? And partnerships is another one that we kind of didn't really talk about, but a lot of people joining up and partnering, and sometimes operationally partnering, meaning, right, from a tactical perspective, from where we come in an ERP perspective, you have to have shared analytics, you have to have combined general ledgers, right? Which creates a complexity, and what you don't want to do is wind up, oh yeah, we do that in Excel. Right? That doesn't really give you the power of analytics to understand, what business function is doing well and which one isn't, right? Because the reality is right, healthcare is going to change today. Even providers, right, you're going to start outsourcing things. And how do you know what to outsource if you don't have the analytics and the data to drive those decisions? So, the regulators, I think, like to play in healthcare, and it might not be like things like HIPAA, right? It might be government regulations affecting how we handle leases, for instance, becomes something that affects a lot of healthcare customers. So, being aware and having systems in place that help you manage those regulatory pressures is critical. And then when we get to talent, right, talent's just kind of almost a sore subject with everybody in healthcare. There's a nursing shortage that's nationwide. You have a hospital, but right half a mile away, there's another hospital. You're both trying to recruit the same talent. And do you have the processes and the systems in place to help you be effective there so that you're not spending a ton of time and a ton of effort trying to be successful there? So, and then, how do you reduce turnover? How do you increase engagement? Those are all very common conversations right now in healthcare. So you need the tools and you need the insight and strategy on how to do that. As well as technology is just entering healthcare in a big way, in a different way, right? It's not like upgrades and such. It's transformational change of technology entering healthcare, whether that be moving from 10 to Cloud Suite. That is not an upgrade. That is a lot to really think about there as far as how you adopt that now world-class technology into your space. Add to it artificial intelligence, RPA, chatbots, mobile, cloud. You need a holistic approach to what you do with all those technologies that are now in the space and how you apply it to be transformational for your employees and for your patients. And then Cloud Suite is very, very different. Yesterday I shared on a webinar, there's over 1,200 changes in supply chain. 1,200 changes. So it's not as simple as, let me look at the differences document and let me look at the changes and see how I simply bring those in. 1,200 changes tells you that there's significant new functionality that you need to reevaluate your entire process continuum to see how you can do business different, to be more competitive, to be more reactive, to be faster. It's a great conversation to have. I'm excited about all the technology that's finally entering healthcare, and there's a huge investment in healthcare. Generally, you're seeing healthcare spending going up rather significantly, IT spending and investment in healthcare. The key is to make sure that that's money well spent. There's a lot of false starts. We have lots of cases out there where people, for instance, do RPA and they buy some big RPA project, and then a year later, it's a complete failure, right? They didn't spend time. I call it stuck at start. They didn't get stuck at start with things like pre-planning, with strategy sessions, with road mapping. They just started, and when you do that, you run a huge risk that it's going to fail.
Thanks, Mike. And when we look at this mergers and acquisitions, these opportunities specifically, we've seen certainly over the 20 years that we've been here, some patterns in the complexities and the opportunities. Combining the GL and the ERP from a day one readiness perspective is a huge opportunity. Pursuing process transformation and building those synergies so that in your organization, as you grow and scale, there's one way to conduct that function. It creates consistency and ultimately agility for your organization. Supply chain consolidation is definitely one of those complexities that comes in, and it gets very deep with volume discounts and other considerations in the healthcare supply chain model, contracting, not to mention the human resource functions. Very complex to look at how benefits administration and those vendor relationships are being handled in a dynamic, changing environment. Oftentimes on the back end technology, we're implementing software to support physician benefit, deferred comp plan negotiations that were done before the ERP began. And, we understand that in many respects, the complexities of these projects are, by definition, these projects are going to be sort of imperfect. And we're very comfortable dealing in that imperfection and, helping find your way through it in a way that's wholesome. branding your go-to-market strategies. I'm not sure what that means. What does that mean?
Well, a lot of times, right, you're company X and tomorrow you're going to be company Y, right? So there's a lot of that external marketing, but there's a lot of internal marketing, right? You need to change logos on systems. You need to change names and such. There's a lot of tech work that's not glamorous, right? That kind of needs to happen internally as well as externally, right? Really, when we not that we're the people to really help you with a go-to-market strategy or a marketing strategy, but it is something that's a complexity around mergers and acquisitions for sure.
Absolutely. And just, with that transformation, at the end of the day, we're using technology to hopefully change people's behavior. And understanding the complexity of that, front-loading the project with change management, communication initiatives, is something we're really excited to be a part of. As well as, I'm sure there's some Aaron Epps fans out there. Reporting and analytics are well positioned to help drive solutions to these complexities.
Absolutely.
And, those solutions create opportunities. Thinking about things differently.
The time is now is kind of a slogan that we kept talking about when we talked about this. One, because of the revolution or upheaval, if you will, that's going on in healthcare, all the investment that's coming in. It's kind of the perfect storm to really take advantage of this. And I know you're like, oh my gosh, I don't need something else. And I don't really like all this chaos and right, but it really is the time, and if you don't do it, my fear is you're going to really lose any competitive advantage that you might have, because your competitors, especially the larger ones, the Kaisers of the world, right, in healthcare, they're all definitely doing it. They're 2 years on the way, so you're not completely out of it if you're not thinking about it and investing. But if you don't start now, you'll definitely be a laggard there. And we really need to look at changing how we do things, right? For the first time, we have some tools that change the way that we administer self-service, that change the way that we can do benefit administration, that change the way that we have ancillary applications, and maybe the time is now to bring it in. So rethinking that, rethinking the processes, how we simply do our work, right? I did a survey once at a convention, and I said, how many people have revamped their processes in the last, completely revamped from start to finish, really looked at that entire process in the last year? No hands. 3 years? No hands. 5 years? 10 years? I started to get a few hands. 15 years was the average. 15 years ago, think about where technology was. RPA, there was no RPA. There really wasn't even process automation, right? So if you think about the advent of technology over the amount of time that it's taken us to really rethink our processes, there's transformational tools available to us now to really make a difference to our customers, to our employees, and the experience that they have that allow us to improve our operations, drive costs down, drive revenue up with embedded technology. And analytics can't be understated, especially in mergers and acquisitions, right? The first thing that you're thinking of when you merge is, okay, what service lines are profitable and which ones aren't? And if you aren't thinking about that in a merger and acquisition, I beg you to think about that, because that becomes very important. And if you don't have combined analytics with using a tool like maybe Burst, it's really hard to answer that from a data-driven perspective.
A great mentor of mine in the business said to me once that, if you wait around long enough, you're going to see the same thing coming around. And I started my consulting journey 20 years ago in August of '99, and I can feel it, that it's coming around. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I think it's Cloud Suite Financials. I think it's the timing of the enterprise, of the HRs that have gone in. But it's exciting work, because that was the market I started in 1999, was business process transformation, and shifting change was the definition of success, shifting your process to best in class. The last 10 years we've been working on very non-disruptive upgrade projects where the definition of success is invisible to the end users, and this is a completely different opportunity, and it's something that we've developed a good track record in, and we're happy to share that with you today.
Awesome.
And I think another one of those factors that's kind of coming to bear is this this pendulum that tends to swing between the best in breed strategy and the enterprise strategy, and where are we now, I think is kind of the question.
It's really interesting because years ago, right, everybody, let's use recruiting software and Taleo, for instance, right? Everybody ran to Taleo in healthcare for a recruiting solution. They own 55% of the healthcare market for recruiting software. Now they're under 30%. So what happened, right? Think about that experience, right? Your recruiters, your employees, your managers are all in this third-party system that's not integrated with your ERP. Was it a great best-of-breed experience? Absolutely at the time. And then, right, once you decide to hire Michael Grace, now I got to go to my ERP system and I got to get all that information over through an integration, right? Very disjointed. The user experience is now swivel chair over to the ERP. And I think that's just one example. The problem is that propagated, especially in the HR space, right? And you wound up with a different benefit systems, a different performance system, a different comp system, a different this. And if you think about it, what I have a great story of a CHRO, and he came to me and he said, Michael, we spent millions of dollars, millions in HR systems. We've got the best talent system, we got the best benefit system, we've got the best this, the best that, and my users are still upset, right? And I said, well, of course, you have a horrible end user experience, right? You tell your employees to do your HR lifecycle, go to 25 systems. Well, different passwords, not single sign-on, right? So you created this environment that's best of breed, but not best of experience. And I think folks are kind of swinging away from that and coming back to an ERP that's highly integrated, especially with the advent of like GHR, right? Where now we have that best of breed experience built into our ERP. We're able to start taking a different look at that and bringing some of that back into a singular system. Reduces your overall cost, streamlines your employee experience. That's just a hard swing where healthcare is going right now.
And then look at the other side of that swing. When you do pursue an enterprise strategy, it's not entirely possible for Infor to be the best at everything. We recognize that. And those are some of the challenges that are unique to pursuing an enterprise strategy. Is you might have a group of stakeholders that conduct a critical function that are going to, in a sense, have to take a step back from the best in breed solution that they have now to serve the greater good of the organization. And that's the right strategic decision ultimately when you look at the organization holistically and you understand the value proposition and the different areas of that function process framework that drives our implementation process. But getting that message through and getting your team to own up and take one for the team, that's a different story. That's not,
And
that's where you need a partner. That's where the rubber meets the road a little bit.
And governance is the key there, right? Like, how do you set a fair evaluation of that so that it's not an emotional decision, right? Because I brought in this system, I have that vendor relationship. What do you mean I got to go to this enterprise strategy thing, right? This is my little world, just leave me alone, right? How do you manage through that, right, with the right executive sponsorship and do a correct evaluation that isn't emotional, that's a little more fact-based? That's something an integration partner can help you with.
Absolutely. So at RPI, I mean, we've been doing this a little while now, and we really value our reputation, and we're serious about who we choose to do business with. And in this case, deciding to pursue essentially some more strategic projects than what you would see a pure implementer like RPI was 11 years ago when I started, to bridging that gap between an implementation partner and a strategic integration partner and filling that void. We're very deliberate about the clients that we're looking to work with. We're looking for clients that have a compelling need for business process transformation, and that could obviously be driven by the merger and acquisitions that we've been talking about. Could also be driven by divestitures. It could be an expansion of an existing service line, like a home health practice in a part of your community, or a physician office practice in a neighboring community. you could have a compelling need for business process transformation because the workforce that's been supporting Lawson for 15 or 20 years is turning over, and it's now time for the next generation to step in, and that generation wants modern technology. That could be your compelling need. We also, we get excited about aggressive growth strategies, because guess what? That's how we operate. So we look for partners that are kind of like us, that have that compelling need for process transformation and continuous improvement. We also, there's a difference between a client or an organization that's approaching this project because they have to versus because they want to. And we're looking for clients that want to. We're looking for clients that are allocating the appropriate amount of resources. We're looking for a demonstrated commitment to building change competency. And we're looking for a willingness to kind of open up the whole box and look at not only your enterprise ERP strategy, and Lawson's going to become Infor, single tenant on-prem is going to become multi-tenant in the cloud, but all the ancillary applications that support that, and driving that standardization through your organization, and realizing those economies of scale. That's where the real value is on the projects of this scale. And that's who we're looking to help, because that's where a lot of our consultants have provided value to this point in their careers. And to that end, obviously we're reaching over 100 active consultants at RPI right now. I can't even believe that when I say it. And the more we grow, the more passionate we are about keeping that culture that's made RPI who we are. And we look at the big GSIs of the world, and to be honest, as a 20-year consultant, I've always kind of looked up to the Accentures and the Deloittes. I've also taken a tremendous amount of pride being the anti-GSI, if you will, kind of cut the fluff. And we recognize that our clients gain trust in different respects. You had some ideas on the implementer GSI continuum.
Yeah, when I really look at the space, right? There's the big folks, there's the smaller folks, and then I'd say RPI is right, moving very, very quickly up into kind of a middle ground, right? And what I really like when I look at our methodology and our approach is we're kind of the no fluff, no BS, no wasted effort, right? We're very engaged with you to take your strategy and operationalize it to be tactically successful, and that's something you really have to look at, especially when you're evaluating partners. A lot of partners, right? I have a background at a GSI, and a lot of times we're like, who are these people? Why are we bringing them to bear, right? And it creates some confusion. It creates some disruption. It's an interesting way to kind of go about it. So I think we really bring all that same level of experience. If you look at, like, for instance, the healthcare experience that we can bring to bear for a healthcare customer, it's very significant, right? And it's real world. It's not kind of out of college with no real experience. So I just think it's a differentiator. We've seen a lot of the larger GSIs come into mergers and acquisitions, right? And they do a great job at that strategic level. And where we fall short, right, where I think sometimes it helps to have an RPI involved, is we're going to take that strategy and we're going to operationalize it for you for day one effectiveness and day one readiness. So that I've seen where day one we're just not, customers are day one and they don't know they don't have a combined GL, they don't have a reporting strategy, they don't know how they're going to operationalize at that ERP level, and that's hazardous, right? That's not good.
Appreciate that perspective. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely at a point of inflection at RPI. This year we celebrated 20 years being in the Lawson space. Correction. We are currently in Kansas City celebrating 20 years in the Infor Lawson space. And we've been very fortunate. We've developed a loyal following. We have clients that we know are rooting for us, and that means a lot to us. The greatest gift from our growth, and we've measured this externally and internally through surveys, The greatest gift of our growth has been the trusted relationships that come with it. And we just want to thank you for your attention to this webinar, for your continued support, and for your curiosity in sharing your vision with us. And most importantly, the opportunity to influence change in your organization. My journey at RPI started in Marriottsville, Maryland. Was it spring, summer of 2002. It was an IDN implementation. There was a central AP center that was measuring invoice backlog in feet of invoices piled up on the floor. And I met Keith Whalen and Brian Rosenberg, these hot shots that were there, somehow leading the charge on a project that I was engaged through a healthcare-specific implementer that was subcontracted to a strategic GSI. And it was, boots on the ground, led by RPI and the thought leadership there. I got a front row seat of watching that revolution happen in the Bon Secours Central Accounts Payable Department. And it was 6 years after that I had the opportunity to join RPI. And I learned at that time, in that 6-year time span, the success we had at Bon Secours. At that time, again, this is 17 years ago, I can't even believe that. RPI was on the front end. I mean, I remember having lunch with Keith, and he was talking to me about how powerful it would be to have a picture of the invoice orbiting the system, that you could actually use this thing called a workflow to drive invoice approval for all these disparate entities. And at the time, this was revolutionary talk, right? And RPI was successful in implementing that. Infor Lawson didn't have a workflow solution at the time, so we built that all out in the imaging, and that's really where our imaging practice was born. And the reward for good work is always more work. So in that 2002 to 2008 timeframe where I wasn't working at RPI, it was, one good thing led to another. RPI had the opportunity to participate, again, on the leading edge of change for the largest at the time, Lawson Healthcare deployment across, the western swath of the United States. We had consultants going out to markets and integrating their vendor files with a standard vendor file. We developed a proprietary set of tools that are still improving today for that same function of integrating master, item, vendor, human resource files into those master files and giving you that strong data foundation on the day one readiness. We've been very fortunate, and it's been an awesome ride, and we're here to share that with you. So that's kind of the point of inflection that we're at. This one's going a little far afield, but bear with me. About this time last year, I got a gift. It was this Neil deGrasse Tyson book for kids on astrophysics. And it's amazing. I've been reading it with my kids, and it talks about like the first couple seconds of our universe. Apparently there was a star, and it exploded. And my kids said, well, what was before that? And we have absolutely no idea. But man, the stuff we do know is amazing with quarks and leptons, and it's kind of amazing how that simple truth of the theory of relativity helped scientists prove and understand how our universe was formed and how that revolution occurred. So when we look at the theory of relativity, we're sort of acknowledging that not all organizations are capable at that same change of pace, change of rate of change of change. The famous theory of relativity equation, E equals mc squared, is a derivation of force equals mass times acceleration. So in healthcare, again, your ability to execute your mission as a healthcare organization, your force, is a determination of your size and your ability to change quickly. And that creates kind of an aha moment at the leadership level for all types of organizations. And we're just excited to be a part of it, where the leadership imperative is about building a change-competent organization. If you're extremely small, it's easier to change. If you're large, it's harder to change. That's just sort of the natural law of things. But if you're both large and able to change quickly, if you're able to maximize that rate of change and balance innovation with stability, you're going to be able to do great things for your customers in the healthcare market. And as an implementation partner with 20 years of experience, we're cognizant of the fact that not all organizations are required to or capable of change at the same pace. So it's not always prescriptive. And again, I said it before, sometimes these types of projects are inherently messy. There can be hard deadlines and hard cutoffs with legacy systems in to-be-acquired or recently acquired facilities that require a crash course in implementation. And it takes a good partner to not only articulate that, but ultimately operationalize that. Anything to add on that, Mike?
I just think the key to change management is to meet you where you are and help you move faster than you can on your own.
Yep.
So I think, a partner like RPI is going to push you probably a little bit out of your comfort zone, but never to the point of failure, right? Because if you fail, we fail. So we're highly vested in that rate of change being appropriate, +2, right? So that we're moving you a little bit faster than perhaps you're comfortable with to meet timelines that we mutually set and agree upon. So
awesome. And when we talk about the RPI difference, we're going to get into specific opportunities we're capable of having conversations about in the people, process, and technology arena. Overall, as Michael said, as we've demonstrated to our clients, the RPI difference is about partnership, and it's a strategic relationship with an eye towards tactical value. We've seen these projects from the line of scrimmage. We know where the juice is worth the squeeze and kind of cut the fluff, get down to work. We're thinking about day one readiness on day one of planning. And our focus is always on operationalizing the opportunity, because that's how most of us learned it, was boots on the ground in the central AP department bailing them out. And when you see it from that perspective, you learn a lot about how to avoid that. And as you know, we're in it for the relationships. We've developed these agile delivery tools like the process integration framework and some of our other infrastructure to move at the speed of trust, which is ultimately about our relationship with each other and with you. So the people opportunities, again, the framework is people, process, and technology. At the strategic level around people, we see opportunities in innovation and transformation of your culture, of innovation, and developing a change competency. There's so many questions that come up around that. How do you know when you're operating in a change competent organization? How can you increase your change competency? These are strategic conversations. Working with your leadership team on the planning and identifying the long lead time tasks and their dependencies these are tool sets that we bring to bear on day one. What types of vendor negotiations, conversations, decisions, and harmonization are necessary, and those take time to work their way through the cycle. So getting your people aligned and plugged into that objective is important. So is the organizational design. This is probably one of the largest value areas in a standardization or consolidation of this nature, is looking at how is your organization structured today? What is that impetus for change? What's life after go live going to look like? And most importantly, what does your org structure need to look like in this interim matrix period where you've got ongoing operations and you're building for a future state, but you've also got this massive project that needs to be executed flawlessly? We're very confident setting up those governance structures and looking at the org design. And also using surveys and data-driven feedback. This is something Michael refers to as the move to conversation. When you engage people in transformation, leveraging mobile technologies, leveraging surveys, getting your employees kind of communicating back to the organization through these enterprise technologies is a really powerful mechanism that can help drive some of this digital transformation. Process opportunities are boundless. Continuous learning and improvement is really the core of that story. Our strategy when we look at process opportunities is, the big ones: standardization, automation, and this one kind of gets overlooked, but it's really valuable to have an external perspective of lessons learned and success with policy harmonization. Especially when you're dealing with bringing two organizations together. They might have different cultures. They definitely have different policies. how do you reconcile that? How do you harmonize those policies? That can be work all on its own, and that's actually one of those high lead time tasks that we like to get after early. Definitely good to take a good hard look at, the conversations driven by that process and function classification framework of what are our core competencies as an organization, what are we currently insourcing versus outsourcing, and doing the analysis around that. One of the benefits we've seen with these organizations that are coming of age with a younger workforce and better technology is the promise of being able to insource traditionally outsourced functions. And I think benefits administration is a good example of that, where we're working with some clients to do that. You can't say something is a core competency, or you can't say it's something that your organization cares about and then outsource it, right? So we'll call foul on that. Look for opportunities to insource where it's appropriate, and also help you see opportunities where maybe this is a necessary task that isn't strategic to your organization. That could be a good opportunity to outsource, like the linens or various things. The insourcing outsourcing analysis is ultimately aligning to the organizational values, and there's a lot of work and a lot of opportunity in that area. Benefit plan redesign is another good example, and also just taking a look at your total reward plan from the benefits that are offered, retirement, deferred income, just looking at the entire total rewards package for the to-be organization, and handling that transition from where you are to where you want to be as an organization is there's plenty of process opportunities to look at. And then finally, technology, looking at the strategic area, move to mobile, leveraging analytics, democratization of information. These are some of the strategic discussions that occur. And ultimately, we put it under technology. I think application harmonization affects all of the areas of people, process, and technology. But ultimately, those dollars for supporting those vendor relationships are often housed in the IT budget. And really what this stream of work is about is kind of doing that vendor analysis from a function and process perspective, looking at the portfolios of other clients similar to your size and scale that are successful with different portfolios of ancillary applications. We'll provide some recommendations on that. Those recommendations would obviously include sunsetting certain applications and expanding others and driving that standardization value. So there's some ROI planning and expectations around that. And then ultimately, partnering with your legal departments or your supply chain contracting team to have those tough conversations with your existing IT vendors. The overarching goal there is to, kind of look at that collection of vendors, some of whom might be sunsetting naturally. Others might just, be casualties of this consolidation. Looking at that holistically and trying to get rid of those one-off vendors that exist here and there to promote the vendors that are really helping your organization move forward. So it's kind of a shedding of these vendors and a development of a real partner ecosystem for your organization.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's I used to tell vendors, you can be a vendor or you can be a partner, right? And you really are looking for vendors that want to take the time to understand what you're trying to do as an organization, not push product, right? And are helping you solution there. So there's a lot of conversations. A lot of times when people think of application harmonization, they just look at the number of apps and then they kind of group them and they go, oh, you have 6 budgeting systems, you only need 1. Well, take the time to understand why your business function has 6 budgeting systems. Yesterday we talked about listening, right, as a skill, and I'd say that's a strength, right? We listen, we understand, and then we help you kind of interpret and govern that to the optimal solution, right? You might have 6 and maybe you wind up with 3. You might have 6 and stay with 6, right? If there's driving business reasons, or you might have 6 and maybe you just get down to 1. So everybody's a little different there, but lots of opportunity now. Again, the time is now to really start talking about that because we have some tools that we haven't had perhaps in the past.
And some talent.
Yes.
I like how you said, I used to tell my vendors, like, you've been on the other side of the negotiation table there, and now we're just excited for, again, that RPI fan club to have access to this growing team. So welcome aboard, Michael. It's really good
Awesome.
to have you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And in conclusion, the time is now. We're here to cut the fluff and drive strategic innovation with a tactical track record. We lead with our strengths, which is a teaming culture. And our team is equal parts quality and fun. We hope that's come through in the webinar today. We want to help you highlight the high-value opportunities, such as content, process, and robotic automation. I failed to talk about the robots. When I was talking about document imaging in 2002 and how RPI kind of got ahead and figured that out and delivered value to our clients, that's happening right now with a new tool called RPA, or robotic process automation. In fact, with our holiday party in Kansas City today and tomorrow, we have over 50 volunteers to show up for a class to learn robotic process automation. So I can't wait, 17 or 19 years from now, talking about all the amazing things we did back in 2019 with robotic process automation. It's a really neat, fun tool set. Vendor harmonization, application lifecycle management, shared service center design and operations. We're here to help standardize your process using our process integration framework. And we're really excited about using the analytical tools like Burst to, keep that same revolution that we've been hearing about getting the data out there and democratized, but also creating data knowledge and ultimately getting you to a data wisdom footprint where you can actually start making meaning of that data and doing strategic decision making based on it.